welcome to Bookish, another fine episode. We're somewhat back from our summer vacay. It is me, Kofi, along with Sylvia Lee and Laura Yu. What's up, ladies? Last time we had our get together, we were talking about crime fiction. But there were probably other things that I know the two of you have been reading, more poetically inclined. So I think this episode we're just recapping what we've been reading and the things that we've been doing, I guess, with ourselves and our minds. So who would like to be the first to jump out there and share?
I'm going to go first because I want to confess that I was a very bad reader this summer. I had all
Ah,
these goals for reading. I had the stacks of books I wanted to read. And other than the, what is it called? The Last Good Kiss. I
yeah.
read one other book, which is, it's called The Thursday Murder Club. So I'm going to show you that cover. And it was recommended to me by a coworker, and it was a book where when I read it at the pool, for example, there were at least like 3-4 different people, like strangers, came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I love that book and it was so good. Do you like it?" And so it was definitely a conversation starter. I guess it was very popular, and it's a like whodunit kind of a story, focusing on a group of I guess elderly people living in a elderly community, and they're going around solving murder. So there's some quirkiness to it. So it's definitely different from the Crumley kind of detective novel, but I enjoyed it. It was good. But as I confessed before, I'm really terrible at figuring out the whodunit, and I'm always shocked. And that happened reading this one as well. So, but yeah, I recommend it. It's a good read. It's a fun read. Other than that, I really struggled to read other stuff, and I'm still making my way through the follow-up to the book, to The Sympathizer, and the second book is called The Committed. And I'm like halfway through, and it's really good. It's really intelligent and interesting. The Sympathizer is looking at sort of the Vietnam and America, like U.S. relationship through Vietnam War. And then in The Committed, the follow-up, we follow the same characters when they go to France. So then it looks at sort of the relationship between the French and the Vietnamese communities post-war. So it's very good. I think I'm just having a summer brain fart or something. So I'm hoping to finish that soon. And then other than that, to make up for being a bad reader, I decided to try the Sealy Challenge again in August and try to read as much poetry as possible. So far, I think I've read 5 books. And I found a way to cheat, which is to get a hold of like the really small, short chapbooks that are like 30-40 pages, which are totally readable in a day. So yeah, I'm really enjoying going through. And most of the poetry books that I have that I'm reading are books that I already have that I just never read, like from beginning to end. So yes, that's what I'm doing.
I will
Wow.
no, I will confess that I've been a bad reader myself. Um, I did read Crumbly, and I started to read Keith Layman's Long Division, and I got like maybe 50 pages in, and it's really good. But I also have these nonfiction articles that I've been kind of reading, and it's more academic readings that I've been doing for the most part this summer. Finished Ellen Carell's book about securing um, reading and composition classes. I finished that. I'm still working through Pat Hogan's literature and the personal self or personal identity, or is it personal identity in literature? whichever way. I always mess up a title. But yeah, I've just been kind of like diving into more academic writing that also has levels of the personal involved. I put it that way.
Mm.
But I haven't been like committed to reading like things through and through. I'll just pick up things, make some notes, and then pick up another thing. And so I'm just trying to get back into a more focused reading. How about you, Sylvia?
Well, here we are again, 3 for 3. I feel like this time last year we were saying like we all failed our summer reading goals or challenges, and this year I feel like we went into the summer, we didn't have like an articulated specific challenge like we did last summer, but suffice it to say, I didn't get around to like even scratching the surface of all the books I was going to read this summer. I started some of them, but I never like finished them. I will, share with I've been sharing with everyone who will listen, basically my summer success story, which is that for the first time since having children, I was able to sit by the pool, not get in the pool, and read a book. I know. And so
That's an accomplishment.
I know, and that book
Awesome.
was Ann Patchett's. Yeah, Ann Patchett's These Precious Days, which is a collection of her essays, and I think Ann Patchett is a wonderful writer. And so I think maybe that's kind of like shading my, impression of the book, because I was actually able to sit down and enjoy it. But yeah, that was like my one summer memorable reading, episode, was being able to sit by the pool and read a book while my children were playing. But beyond that, I do usually do the CLE challenge as well. And this year I wanted to do something a little bit different. Actually, Laura, the CLE challenge, if I remember, was started for chapbook reading. Actually, that's why it's like one book a day. But
oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it would get people to be exposed to, poets who they might not have a chance to meet, who may not have written a book through a major publisher. So in the spirit of that, I decided to go through this very large anthology that's been sitting on my bookshelf for a while. I've kind of like, delved into bits and pieces here and there, but it's an anthology of Asian American poets. And I realized as I was reading it, the vast majority, I mean, it is a big anthology. I haven't heard of the majority of them. I mean, you have your big names in there too, like Marilyn Chin, but most of them are these very like, I guess they're called minor poets who you don't really hear a lot about. They're not touring or like, publishing a lot of books or anything like that. But I've just been blown away by the different voices I've been exposed to so far. So I've been posting some of those memorable poems on my Instagram for folks to kind of get a sense of who these writers are. And the really cool thing about this book was the anthology was compiled in the mid-90s, and it's called Premonitions, a new anthology of Asian American poets. And the reason why it was called Premonitions was the whole vision of the anthology was to give a vision of what Asian American poetry could be in the future as we move forward. And so even though these poems were written, like published in the mid-90s, some of them still read so fresh, like they would be really fresh today. So I've been enjoying that. And then I'm going to move into a smaller anthology and then some individual books in the next coming weeks. And then I started our sneak peek for our viewers and listeners, our book for the Book Connection, which is a joint effort, communal effort in our local community with a featured author who's Gabriel Bump. I started listening to it on my morning walks in the beginning of the summer, and now I'm finishing it up by reading it. And the author will be on campus for the Bowder Lecture discussing his book. So that's the other one that I'm kind of working on. And then beyond that, I actually did read a book about teaching because, that's the other thing we do in the summer is we try to figure out how can I make my job harder in the fall by totally changing everything I do the way I've always done it. So start from scratch. Why not? So yeah, that's the other reading I've done. But I had like a whole other list of books that I wanted to read, and I didn't get to that. I think the only book that I read in one city, like, you know, in one continuous thing from cover to cover was James Crumley's Last Good Kiss, because it was a fast read. And it was,
yeah, that's what crime fiction does. It's a fast read. You can get through it within a day or two, and yeah, it's that. Yeah, I wish I had more books like that. I mean, I actually do, but you know, they
Thursday
weren't the
Murder
things
Club.
I might try that.
I might too. I actually really liked. I liked that genre of like old people solving murders. Like I used to love Matlock. Do you guys remember the show Matlock?
I do
I don't know.
remember Matlock.
Yeah, so you're like old Mr. Matlock, like solving these murders and like, you know, being an attorney. I just thought it was fun. I don't know why, but
yeah. Matlock was at a particular time, but I also like Quincy, the medical examiner, and I always found that to be, because I think the way it worked was Quincy was supposed to be. I think that was I might be wrong about this. It was the natural progression after MASH or something like that. Like the doctor who, you know what, I'm hearing myself and I'm thinking, I got the wrong show. That's not Quincy. It's something.
I was like,
maybe it's Traffic MD. That's what I might be thinking.
Oh, okay. Was Quincy like a medical? I think I vaguely remember like reruns. I think, was he like a medical examiner? No, a medical, like it's like pre-CSI.
Yeah, like absolutely.
Old people.
Yeah.
Wow, I definitely did not expect we would be talking about Matlock and Quincy and, you know.
I think it's old people solving crimes. Have you watched the movie, the television show, I guess, with Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena?
It's on my list.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. And so that the book that you described, Laura, kind of reminded me of that idea that there's
actually
this community.
The person who recommended the book also recommended that TV show. I think it's something about like they only solve murders that happen in the building or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's very much. Yes. Yeah.
But I like that show. I mean, it was on my list because it does check my boxes. Old people solving crime, and then there's Selena Gomez, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. You know, like together. You know, and it's not just old people. It's Steve Martin and Martin Short. They're like, you know, pretty iconic. But yeah, and then I'm like, I could be either. I could see myself as the Selena Gomez character, you know, because I would solve crimes with old people, and then I will soon be. I can only hope to be as cool as Steve Martin and Martin Short, but yeah. Maybe that's our next.
I'm actually thinking that maybe I like summer, even though you think that summer would be the best time to read a lot, right? A lot more or something. Maybe it was harder for me because like my regular book club, we take a break during the summer, for example, and everything is sort of out of routine, right? From when, as also people who teach, like our lives are very different, you know, feel very different during the summer versus the rest of the 10 months, right? So I'm thinking that maybe is the opposite. Once, you know, school starts again, classes start, and I'm back in that mode of doing a lot of reading and writing in general, and then the book club's picking up again, maybe I'll feel like bringing reading back into my daily routine or something. I don't know. That's my hope anyway. Yeah.
Well, isn't that the purpose of book clubs, right? I mean, we talked about this early on, but the purpose of a book club is to keep you in that mode of reading with other people, so that you have almost a purpose to the reading, aside from like leisurely activity. I think in the summer when I read, I'm reading with a very different purpose or end goal in mind, right? Which is to either like entertain myself while I'm at the beach. That's why beach readings exist, or it's more leisurely for myself. But then during the year, when I'm in a book club, either with Bookish or with other people, I feel like, there's like an end goal or end destination to my reading. And so it keeps me, and part of that is it keeps me on a regular schedule to read. And I know I'll be talking with other people about it. So it keeps me kind of motivated to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's why I'm really grateful for book clubs and those kinds of communities that exist in different places, But
Yeah, and I think it's also healthy that you take a break.
Yeah.
Sometimes
normalize that. Taking a break from reading.
it's as someone who writes as well as reads, you can get into your head and think that you're supposed to be doing something a specific way because that's what you've heard of the people say that they did, and you don't know if it's true or not. So I think I err on the side of if I feel mentally fatigued, I probably should stop doing something because that's not.
Yeah, you're right.
But for the most part, I think you're right, Laura. The summer, it should be ideal, but it's sometimes not because I'm home and the kids are home and they want activities and so forth. And so because of that, and I don't want to be a trifling dad. I try to spend time with my kids. But yeah, it's interesting. My son has a summer reading list. He's reading The Alchemist, and I think a book called Long Way Down. It's a novel written in verse, and I can't remember. I can't remember who the author is. I think he's an African American, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's an interesting. That sounds right. That actually sounds right. Very good. It's like you were in my house.
My son also likes Jason Reynolds books too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there has been reading going on in other than just me. But yeah, I think it's weird that I have all these things that I want to read, and I'm kind of reading them, but not really reading them the way I would like to. I guess
I was also excited this summer because my son also he picked books that he wanted to read, and he started with Fahrenheit 451. So I was really excited, you're reading real books now. He's going to be in 8th grade. And then he really wanted to read The Lord of the Flies.
And
I think I think it has to do with references, right? Like when TV shows, movies, just a lot of cultural things, they reference some of these things, and those are some of the big ones like Fahrenheit 451 or The Lord of the Flies. So he's working his way through Lord of the Flies. So that's been also exciting for me too. Yay, you're reading real books. Yeah.
I distinctly remember when I read Lord of the Flies because it made the world is one of those books where you're as an adolescent or a preteen, you're oh, you're this book makes so much sense with human behavior and what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But actually what you guys are thinking of is that I actually did read a lot of books with my kids because they're, I have younger kids, so 7 years old. And we bought Costco was selling the whole Roald Dahl collection, I guess, for insanely cheap. So I was okay, let's buy some of it. So we bought the collection, and I've been reading through it with one of my sons. So we read the BFG, we read Fantastic Mr. Fox, which he loved, and we're reading James and the Giant Peach. And as I'm reading it, it's interesting reading again as an adult with him and like having to contextualize and like explain some of the things in there. Like the BFG, I realized was very like includes some kind of messed up stereotypes about people in the world. And like
Mhm.
I was kind of saying, oh well, you know, we wouldn't really use these words today because that's not exactly right. And then
Yeah.
you know, Fantastic Mr. Fox is a lot of fun because you know it's just kind of it is what it is, a very short book. And then we got to watch the Wes Anderson movie with the kids
Oh,
afterwards. Yeah, and they really liked it, actually, surprisingly. And they thought it was really funny, like seeing some of the book come to life. And so I promised
mhm.
Ezra that we would read James and Giant Peach and then watch that movie too afterwards, because now all of them pretty much
Mhm.
have been turned into. And then we're gonna start with Matilda probably after that. But yeah, it's. I was like, oh yeah, I did read quite a few of books with them, not counting all the little like
Oh, that's great.
children's books. Yeah, and I realized, oh, that counts too, because it's taking me into a different like children's literature, children's reading. It just I don't know, it's different mindset, and I really have been appreciating revisiting these books with him. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I like when I was able to read with the kids. That was always a good feeling. And now that they've gotten older, they don't want me to read to them. they don't they don't want much from me anymore, other than money and transportation. And so yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good that they're reading. Well, with Laura and my son, they're reading books, and I'm just really hopeful they can continue to read books, and not just go down the I just want to read graphic novels, which are great, but I would like for my son and daughter to have a variety of reading materials that they can go through. And so Angie and I, my wife and I, are working on that. So shout out to
That's
Angie.
great.
She's going to listen to this podcast.
Oh, she must be one of the 2 people who downloads that.
She
Because
is
we
one
don't
of
have.
those 2 people. She's one of
Oh.
those 2 people. And she likes and subscribes. So that.
Aw. Thanks, Angie. You're the realist.
um, you
Speaking
know,
of
the
reads,
when you got
I was gonna say,
go
speaking
ahead.
of reads, what are we going to be reading this year? Have you guys given any thought to some of the books that you want to read?
Well, I definitely need to and want to read the Gabriel Bump book before, like at HCC. I think we have events coming up, and and I've heard really great things about it. And again, that was one of the books in my pile to read this summer. So I definitely that would be my next book after I finish The Committed. For me, that would be the book to read. And at my book club, which I love, like because we're super organized, is in August. We set our book schedule for the rest of the year, so we know what we're reading for the next 10 months, 11 months.
Dang.
And it's very organized, and we're on schedule, and sometimes like we have to modify as we go along, but so I'll know, next month, like what I'll be reading with my book club. And I love that experience because we all each like nominate a book, and then we vote on them and see which ones we want to read. And so we always get a great variety, and I end up reading books that I might not pick up. And even if I don't love them, it's such a great experience. So again, going back to that sort of joy of reading with other people in a book club. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting. Not even thinking about. I know I've ordered. What is it, Nana Kwame
Uh-huh.
Brenner?
Ajay Benya.
Yeah,
New book. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've ordered his. I think it comes out this month or in September. Um, I'm almost certain. So I would like to put that on the list. Of course, the the book for the Bowder. Even though I hadn't anticipated reading that, I don't mind reading it. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, why don't we make that the next thing?
That sounds good.
If that's cool.
That was our planning meeting just now.
Yeah. All right. All right. See, we're behind the curtain, ladies and gentlemen. This is how we plan things.
I love it. I love it.
That's why we're a casual book club.
We put the cash in casual for sure, I think. All right. Well, thanks you guys for sharing some of your thoughts. And I feel a little bit comforted knowing that I'm not the only one who didn't get nearly anywhere. But I do think that also says something about the state of our minds going into summer, like what we needed and what we gave ourselves that time. So yeah, Kofi, I'm with you. Let's normalize the idea of taking a break from reading sometimes.
Yeah.
And then now that we are back on our I'm sorry?
It's never really a full break. Like we're never really not reading. It's just we may not be reading those heavy, weighty books. We might be reading something else like children's books with our kids, or it's a nonstop thing. But yeah, sitting down, cracking open a book, yeah, that feels good when you can do it.
Yes.
Reading is a way of life, I think, for some people. You're right. We're always reading it in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's like another level. Maybe we like achieved master level of reading when we're just like reading all the time. We don't realize we're reading. I mean, that could be one way to look at it, right? No? Am I spinning things?
I agree.
Okay. But anyways, thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts on your summer reading journeys. And I hope our viewers and listeners had a very productive, however you define that, summer of reading or not reading, or reading and not realizing you were reading. And that you tune in next time to hear about our next book, which I suppose now is Everywhere You Don't Belong by Gabriel Bump, who, if you're in Howard County, will be a featured guest at the Bowder lecture. So we'll talk about that in our next episode. As always, you can catch us on dragondigitalradio.podbean.com or on Facebook, Bookish a Casual Book Club. We're on Facebook now. And on YouTube as well. We post our YouTube episodes once a month as well. So check us out and send us a message. And we hope you had a good summer and you have a good back to school or wherever you're going fall. All right. Till next time.